Hi guys, welcome to Pixel Affair. It's Kobe here. So in today's video, we are going to see how we will create this. So this is actually something I actually saw some time ago from a tutorial on YouTube, and it was like something done using Houdini, right? I actually looked for the tutorial, I can't find it, but it was something similar to this, and I had it in mind that I'll try and see if I can recreate this using Cinema 4D standard, like normal Mograph and the volume builder, to see if we can get something similar, right? And this is what I came up with. So we are going to see how we set up something like this, and it's quite simple. So this is the original scene that I actually rendered here, and you can see it's growing up, right? Basically, and I actually baked it into Alembeck, so I can actually play it for it to see, and you can see this is the whole scene. So let's actually go into a whole new scene and see how we can create this from scratch. So I have a new scene open here, and I already have the bust in here, and the bust is something I got from the Cinema 4D assets browser. So if I come into the asset browser in the models tab, when you come to the miscellaneous folder, you can see you have a bust in here, or you can simply search for bust and I think it will come up. So now with the bust in here, let's actually come into our Mograph menu here. It could be here as well, and create a matrix, right? Let's make sure our matrix, select the matrix, come to the object tab, and the size, let's set it to something like maybe, in fact, let's go to various views and let's set the X size X to, I think 4 will be fine. 4 on the X and 4 on the Z, 2 I think should be fine. And then on the Y, let's actually increase the number of counts of the Y to 40 as well. And now let's set the Y to something like 5 to see if it covers. All we want to do is we want to make sure our matrix covers our bust, the head completely. So I think this one, that's fine. I think, yeah, maybe let's increase the Y to maybe a bit 6, something like that. So now that we have our matrix covering our bust head, that's what you want. So let's make it a little bit smaller. So I'll select the matrix once again. Make sure first of all the mode is now moved from percept to endpoint so that the size that we've gotten doesn't change. And then let's select the transform tab and make sure the size is reduced to maybe something like 0.5. But in the original one I did it to like 0.2 or 0.3, something less, but I'll reduce the scale of the matrix is individual to like 0.5, 0.5 on XYZ, something like this. I think should be fine for the sake of the tutorial so that it can run a bit faster. And let's go back into the matrix object and make this one maybe 50, something like that. And now let's select the matrix. In fact, I don't like the word plane, right? So let's actually come to filter and uncheck word plane. And now we have the matrix selected. Let's come into our fields and I'll add a plane effector. You can see it's moving our object, our matrix up. I don't want that. We don't want to move it. We want to scale it. So I'll select scale and check uniform scale, and I'll set it to -1. Right, everything disappears. Now I'll select the plane, come to fields tab, and I'll create a spherical field. Right, and you can see where the spherical field, it's scaling it down. So let's actually move it. First of all, make our spherical field a bit smaller, something like that. In fact, let's hide the matrix, and we want it to grow from the bottom of the bus somewhere here, right? So let's make sure we move, select E, and move our spherical field down somewhere here, right? I think somewhere here should be fine. Let's move it a bit back. I think something like this should do. So this is where we want our head to start growing from. So that's where we want our spherical field to be, basically. So now let's bring back our matrix, and you can see that's where it's being affected, right? Now if we select the field once again and come into the modes in here, let's choose freeze from the modifiers, and now let's drag the freeze down, something like that, and change the spherical field from normal, the blend mode from normal to either of this, add screen or max. Add, that's fine. Let's select the freeze once again and change the mode down here from none to grow. And now if we hit play, you can see our matrix scales down from that point that our spherical field is, and that's what we want. Right, scale down, but I think it's too fast, so maybe I'll set the strength to maybe like 30. Right, the other thing is that I don't want it to scale down. I want it to rather reveal it instead of making it disappear. So to do that, if I hit play, you can see it scales it down, but I want it to make it scale it up. So now select the plane once again, come to the parameters and parameter tab here, and make sure the transform mode is changed from relative to remap, and now it does the opposite. So now you can see it's growing our object, and that's what you want to use, growing our matrix. But one thing is that it grows too clean because it's a spherical field. We want a bit of randomness and turbulence in it. So to do that, I'll select this plane effect once again, come to fields tab, and in there now I'll click on the fields that we have here, and I'll choose shader field. Right, I'll choose the shader field and then come to the shader down here, click on it and choose noise to add some noise to it. I'll select the noise thumbnail, click on it, and then we can now go in here and choose one of these noises, or we can click on this to choose it by name. I think the one I used in my original one was the hammer one, something like that. And then I'll change the scale to maybe 300, I think, something like this. Right, so now if we go back into our plane effector and the fields and the freeze modifier, we can see the shader is overshadowing everything, but we don't want it to affect everything. All we want to affect is the radius of the freeze. So now let's drag the shader field onto the radius of the freeze, and I can see affects if I hide the head actually, and let's hit go. You can see there's a bit of randomness, but it doesn't move, it doesn't grow like the way we want it. It starts and it stops. Right, so for us to get it to grow, maybe we can select the shader once again, keep going back and forth, select the click on the thumbnail, and now add a little bit of animation speed to it, maybe 1 or 2, I think should be fine. And now if I hit play, I think you should be able to, you can see something is happening. Right, it's growing. You can actually also come back to the freeze modifier once again and also probably increase the radius to maybe 14 or 15. Right, and now you can see it's growing, but there's a little bit of randomness to it, and that's something that we want. So this is basically how I got it to grow. So now let's increase our time frame to maybe something like 400. All right, and now you can see it grows on exactly the way we want it. All right, so what you are going to do now is going to use this matrix to actually use to grow, like sort of like boolean in a boolean operation, right, to get the head to reveal. But to do that, you actually make it happen within the volume builder. So now I'll create a volume builder, right, select the volume builder, and I'll first of all drag the head in here. I'll hide the head, the past, I don't want to see it, and now reduce the voxel size to something like 1. Right, and the next is I'll drag the matrix on top of the bust, and you can see that one too happens in here. Right, now if I hit play, you can see the matrix is showing, even though if I hide the volume builder, we have a small chunk here, but it's not growing the way we want it, and that's because use particle size is not checked. So if I check use particle size and now I hide my matrix, right, nothing happens, but you can see at least it doesn't show right from the whole matrix is not showing. And that the reason why we are not seeing the small chunk is here, it's because of the radius here is set to, I think, 1.5. Let's set it to 5 to see if we can show. No, let's maybe 10. Right, and I think for now let's bring back our volume builder, and I can see we have that small chunk, but without use particle fields everything shows. But with it, you see, it recognizes every individual matrix the way it comes from, it scales up. So now if I hit play, you can see now within the volume builder it's scaling up. So we are going to use this sort of to bool, like in a Boolean operation, to actually where it intersects, it reveals basically. So now I select it, and the matrix, you can see the mode is set to union. If you change it to intersect, now whenever the matrix and the bust like head intersects, it kind of reveals it, right? So that's basically the basis for this whole video, right? So that's it. So but with the what I did, there should be a bit like this one looks too blobby and individual scaling. So to get it to blend together, I added a bit of smoothing. So to do that, I'll create a new folder within the volume builder. Create a new folder, drag in the matrix, all right, and now select, coming down here, and add smooth, SDF smooth, right? I'll leave it as default and drag it into the folder as well. Make sure it's on top of the matrix, right? So this is one folder which contains the matrix and the smooth. So the smooth applies to only the matrix. It doesn't affect the bust, right? So that's what I want. And now with the folder selected, I'll change the mode from union to intersect rather. And now you can see this is what you have. So that's basically how I created the video, right? So now with this selected, now let's allow it to grow on a bit, and you see how in the original video that I actually showed, you can see if I come to the window picture viewer, you can see we have the outside with the inside with some gold shape, and the outside has a different material, right? And that's to achieve that. Unfortunately, with the volume builder, we have just one object by itself, and it can't give us the inside and outside. So we have to figure out a way to do that. So let's let it grow and see how we actually get the outside to have different material and the inside to have different material as well. So I'll let it grow a little bit, something like this. Let it go, let it go, let it go. Right, I think something like this should be fine. Right, so how do we get the inside this thing? So first of all, let's add a volume measure. So I'll come in here and I'll add a volume measure, drag in the volume builder so that we have a real mesh, right? And it's one mesh. If we apply any material to it, it wouldn't work. So to actually get the inside and the outside, I use a different trick. So with Cinema 4D, I think this rule probably might not, a very later version, I think R23 and R24 will probably, unless, might not be able to do this. But with the earlier version, I think from R26, I don't remember, or 2023 upwards, you can actually add vertex map to parametric objects. So it makes this trick works. So now what I can do is I right click on the volume measure, and then in the other tags I can add vertex map to the volume measure, and you can see we have a vertex map. Now remember, all we want is the outside, right, to have its shader, and the inside to have its different material. So with the vertex map selected, I'll drag and drop in the head bust, that's original head bust that we used. I'll drag it in here. You can see there's something happening. So I'll select the head bust within the vertex map. I'll change the mode from point to surface, right, and then I'll reduce the radius to maybe 1 or maybe 2, something like that. So if you have a very detailed volume builder, like you can see everything works fine, will be cleaner than this, but there's a bit of readiness and all of that somewhere here, but I think it's fine. So you can adjust the radius a little bit, maybe let's see 3 for this case. This is basically the trick I use to actually get the inside and the outside. So when we have the vertex map like that, now we can use that to define which material should be paired. So we can use Redshift, Arnold, or any render that we want to use, or even the standard Cinema 4D material. But let's actually see how we do this with Redshift, or let's actually use Arnold. So I'll come in here and I'll create an Arnold IPR, right? And I think it should be fine. And then let's go ahead and create, I think I have an Arnold skylight in the scene already. So if I come into my enable it, I think it should show. We have another sky. If I enable make it show, you should be able to see what's going on with our objects. All right. So with the anode sky, I think there's something. Let me actually use the diffuse. So yeah, I have an anode sky which I've added an HDRI image to it. You can actually simply do that. Just anode sky, and in here I've added an HDRI image to the color place. Right. You can use the HDRI. You can search some and get some in the asset browser. And you search for HDRI, you should be able to get an HDRI in the asset browser. So now you can see we are seeing a head burst, right? And now for us to get the inside and the outside, let's create another material. So I come into my materials in here, create anode standard surface, standard surface, and middle click on it to open the shader graph. And now we have this the first surface that we want. So let's probably make this one metal and choose maybe gold. Now with this same one, we hold Control to click and drag to get a second copy. I think you've created two, so let's delete this one. A second copy, and let's make this one normal plastic or whatever color that we want. Plastic. This is just to show. So right. So how do we get the middle? We have to get a vertex information. The vertex information. So I'll type vertex. You can see we have vertex map within download shader. So now let's select the vertex map and drag in here. You can see it's asking us for which vertex map we want to use. So let's drag in this vertex map, right? And now we can use this vertex map to blend where and what to show. So now let's create a layer shader that we can use to blend. So the first surface, drag, choose one layer, one input, right? And the second material, drag and drop it on the main and choose layer 2 input. And let's use the vertex map, but before we use that, let's convert it to black and white color. So I'll look for a ramp, which is like a gradient now. So I'll drag in the ramp, connect our vertex map into the ramp input, right? And make sure the type is set to custom, right? And now let's drag the ramp into the main, the layer 2, and choose mix, right? So now excuse me, if we apply our material to our volume measure, you should be able to see what's going on. Let's actually see. Let me actually connect this to see what's going on. Yeah, it's working. So I think we should be able to see here going. Let's select the standard, the second one actually, and probably check the reason why that part. Yeah, so you can see it's basically working. So inside is good and the outside. So let's change the second shader. Let's change the color to different color, maybe red, so that's visible. So you can see we have the inside red and the outside red and the inside like the gold color that we choose. So that's basically the trick that I use. If you want to reverse it, all you have to select the ramp, right? Can now select the ramp, right click and say invert gradient, and now you can see the inside is red and the outside is gold, right? However you want to do it. So from here going, it's just adding your light and adjusting how you want it to look, or whatever materials you want to use to achieve the look that you want. So basically this is the trick I actually used to arrive at this. After I was done, I actually baked it as Alembic. Right click on the object and come to bake as Alembic, and I can time it or keyframe it and all of that to how you want it to flow and all of everything basically, and also be able to play through the timeline easily. So yeah, that's basically the whole tip. That's how the whole thing was actually built, and I hope this video was useful. You've learned a trick or two from this particular video. I'll say thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.